Welcome to yet another episode of DevTips. You're so excited, I can tell. So welcome to Monday. We are doing number 10 of this video series. It's just going with so many more. And this is an interesting installment of the video series because I asked you guys what you wanted to do. I said, do you want to do more animation stuff? Look at the way that we handle these hover effects for the thumbnails in the work section, or do you want to continue on and just build out the work section? And you responded in the comments below, the vast majority of you saying that you wanted to look at some animations a little bit more. So never fear, I have listened. And that's what we're doing today. We're looking at some animation. I'm going to take you through two different approaches. The first approach is that I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to say, okay, what do I think would be a good idea? And just kind of walk you through a bit of just like the normal way I would approach transitioning these type of interactions. The second way is I'm going to take you through and use an open source library where we can grab some code and try to apply it to our use case. We have to do a little bit of hacking to make it work, but it does work and it's really exciting. So yeah, that's it. Let's just get started. Okay, here's where we left off last time. In the work section, we have these panels that slide up when we hover over the thumbnail. And how we do that is we have the thumb unit, and we say that it's going to have an overflow of hidden. And then the also important thing is that we have a position of relative. So thumb overlay is the next bit. That's the brown thing. And what it will do is, by nature, it will start at the full height and width of, see, height is 100%, the full height and width of its parent, which is the thumb unit, but it will also be pushed down from the top 100%. If you can imagine, actually, let me just illustrate that for you. Inspect element. I'm going to thumb overlay. And right now we're at the top 100%. Let me take that down. You see how this is working? If it's 0% from the top, 10%, 20, and we're just pushing it down. 100% is the same amount of as whatever the height of the parent is, right? So if the thumb unit's height was padding top, so if the thumb unit was taller, the height of the overlay would be taller. It's just that simple. Now that we understand how this overlay is where it's coming from, let me actually open this overflow, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's not being cut off. You see how these things are down below there? They're pushed down 100%, and then when we hover over them, that's what this declaration does. Hover over the parent, which this ampersand is referring to the parent of thumb unit. So this says when the thumb unit gets hovered, take the child, which is the overlay, the thumb overlay, and position it absolutely. You know what I could do? This doesn't even need to be all this magic. It could be top. What did I do? Okay, this could be top 0%. And then position the overlay top 0%. So put it back where it naturally would be. Let's refresh here and show that what that means. See how it slides right back up to where it naturally should be? It's going to the top 0%, from 100% to 0%, and that's that slide. Now this is animated by using this little declaration right in overlay. Where are you? Transition, right here. This guy is a bourbon mix-in, which just will output the various browser prefixed transition declarations with a few defaults. I think it's 300 milliseconds, transition all, and the easing is like ease in out or something like that. Those are the defaults, right? So that's how this animation is happening. And let me turn that overflow hidden back on so we can see what it will look like. So that's the transition. Now we saw me kind of go through this and create it last time, but what we want to do this time, now that we have a really firm understanding of how this transition takes place, we can mess with it. We can just really mold it. And this is where a lot of the fun comes from. My favorite parts anyway, because you could just like think of these different parameters and kind of attributes that are being attributed to these styles, and just mess with them and make something really, really interesting. So the first one I want to show you is kind of like how to do like a little bit more of a perspective on it. Now to do that, we have to remember and not forget a really important CSS declaration called perspective. So let's look at the work markup here. And remember we have the thumb unit, which has the background on it. And then we have the thumb overlay. That's the brown box that's sliding up and down. So it's the parent and child. Now we have to go to the thumb unit here and tell it to have an inherent perspective. We have to tell it how far you as the viewer or the the website user are from this box, literally in 3D space. It's kind of an interesting idea, but let me show you how that works. Go over to the thumb unit, and it's just as simple as this. I'm going to use bourbon again and say perspective. Uh, 300. Now, the 300 is just a starting place. It's something that I've used before. 300 is a unit of measurement that we're going to use to start with, and then we can adjust it accordingly. And it's something that I've used and found comfortable in the past, so we'll just start there. So the parent, which is thumb unit, is going to have a perspective of 300. And then we'll go down here to the thumb overlay and start kind of messing around with another bourbon mix-in, another CSS property called transform rotate. Rotate capital X, and then we'll just say 90 degrees. Now this is going to be the beginning position of our animation. Remember, this is the natural place for it. All of them are going to be rotated 90 degrees in the X plane until you hover over them. So let's copy and paste that down here. Hover over them to be 0 degrees. Okay? And let's just take a look at what we got there. So that's the animation right now. I want to slow that down a little bit. Let's go to transition here and say 800 milliseconds. Okay, so it's still coming from the bottom like it used to, but it's tilting itself in 3D space. You see how these corners, let me slow it down a little bit further. Let me say 5 seconds, and okay, you see it's still like, it's in 3D space. We could see that it doesn't fit, like the edges right here are not touching the, it's got this kind of like perspective going on, which is good, but it's still like sliding up from the bottom, which makes it a little odd. So why don't we say that it's not starting at 100%, but it's starting it at like 50% from the top. That looks a little better in terms of like a, I don't know, like a bat cave door. And then you're going to drive your Batmobile out, jump over the bridge. Sorry, I read too many comic books. Let's do negative 50 so that it can like lift up a little bit. Oh, that's cool. Let's say 0. You know what we want to do? Let's put a transform origin. Dash origin. And we'll say that's going to be from the center and the bottom. That way we're anchoring our animation from the bottom of this thing, and we'll move it back down. Yeah, let me show you this. Okay, so now that's even more. So it used to be pivoting from the center, but now it's by default, but now it's pivoting from the very bottom or on this bottom edge here. So it definitely looks like a door that's raising up and lowering. And that's pretty cool. Now one thing we can also do to it is say it also has an opacity of 0 by default, and then when we're hovering it transitions to an opacity of 1, so it'll fade in. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Let's see what that looks in real time. It's got this like opening door effect. I like that. It looks like it's popping up out at you. I wonder what it would look like if we kind of raised it up a little bit and did that -50 here. So it's actually going to slide down a little bit this time because we're raising it -50 from the top and then putting it to a 0% when you enact the animation. Let's try that. Now this is interesting. It looks like it's popping a little bit more, like popping and flipping at you, because it's not jumping up from the bottom or raising up like that kind of like Batmobile door that we were looking at just a second ago. It looks like it has a little bit more pop. Pop, pop. Like a flip. That's cool. See, this is like the way I like to handle like animations and transitions, like just kind of experiment with beginning and ending states, you know? Like, I don't know, I think it's fun. But there are libraries as well that we can utilize. In fact, I was just looking at one today. It's called BounceJS.com. And Bounce.js is interesting. It's not a JavaScript library, but it's a JavaScript powered editor, I guess you would say, right? So you have this little brick down here, and let me make this smaller so you can see it in the window. Okay, we have this little brick down here that that's cute. That you know, we can attribute animations to. And what we do is we grab these components, and here's a scale component. So the animation would be that it just scales up, which is kind of actually what we were kind of looking for. Stiffness, really stiff animation, really loose animation, more jelly-like. Bounce is 4 times. Let's see what, oh, wow. Boing. That's cool. Easing sway. This is cool. This is kind of what we want. So once we get what we want, we have to just press this right here, export the CSS. And what happened is now we're given an animation, like, right, a proper animation. This is not just using transitions like we did. So let's grab this animation. It's kind of large. This won't work in our Sass file, so let's create another Sass file, but we'll use CSS this time. And we'll put it in tools. Yeah, let's put it in tools and say, call it animations. .scss. And just paste everything in there for now. Go to directory and add animations to our CSS. Now we can go into animations, and the workflow that they're prescribing is that we add animation target to the thing, but we want to keep it a little bit more dry, so we'll add this as a placeholder. And we'll just take that. So placeholder animation. So what we do is go into our work Sass, and we'd say thumb overlay, put this at extend placeholder animation. That's what it's called, right? Animation. Yeah. And then we would have to get rid of get rid of these things, that thing, and get rid of this thing and make it 0% because we want it to stay at the top. Okay, so we're not thinking about before and after anymore. Now we're thinking about where should it be, and then I think we're gonna have some adjusting after we run this, but let's see where we're at right now. Refresh. Okay, that's what I thought. Actually, we copied the wrong thing. So let's go back to this, and it wants to go from, oh, here we are, the height ratio. We want to go from 0 to 1 from 0 to 1. So let's get that code actually. And that's going to be right here. And we'll replace this other one right here. V. All right, let's see if that made a difference. So that's saying start at with 0 scale and pop out. So that would work, but we need to see that. We need to have a start at 0. So what am I doing? Matrix 3D. Yikes. I need to find the to, or the from. Okay. This is what we need to transform from. So let's take this to our start place and do that. I'm not sure. This is all really experimental right in front of you guys. I'm not really prepared, I guess. Let's try this. All right, it's a little flashy, like a little pop. It pops in and out, but I get that's the idea, right? Like it has this bounce. Is that what we wanted? Let's slow it down. Let's go to animations, 1,000 milliseconds. Let's just go to 2 seconds. What is it? What was the one we used? It's 2 seconds. All right, so what it's doing here is, you see that little flicker? It's like popping up, going from 0 to full, and then the animation is starting, taking it back to 0 and jump and like bouncing it to full. So we need to, why would it do that if I put the start at 0? Here's a trick that I could possibly use. It's not going to stop the flicker, but it's going to hide it. So opacity 1, we'll do this trick. And opacity 0, and then transition. Transition opacity 300 milliseconds. Now that should transition only opacity, not all like we had it previously. And the opacity is going to start at 0, so hopefully it should hide that little flicker. We'll see what we get. So the flicker is still there, but I can see that the opacity transition has softened that flicker a little bit. But if we delayed the opacity transition, I think we could just, this is like a hacky thing to do, but who cares? Sometimes you got to do this. So opacity, and then we would say ease in, and then delay would be 300 milliseconds. Let's see if this works. It's getting along there. That's pretty cool. Now, I don't want the bounce to actually be this long. We were just testing the animation. But this looks pretty good. Let's change that bounce animation time back to 1 second. Maybe that's even too long, but that's fine. Let's try it. Yeah, there we are. It's kind of nice, huh? What do you guys think about that one? A little bouncy bounce. That's fun. Let's see what else we can get out of Bounce.js. They have some presets here. So jelly, it's similar to what we just looked at. Back and forth. Clock. splat. That's interesting. Scale would be from 0 to 1. 0 to 1. Oh, we're messing it up. Oh, I see what it was for. Slinky? Oh, that's cute. Smack? Oh, that one would be nice, probably. Yeah, I like that one. Let's use that one. So let's see if this scale, it goes from 1 to 2. We want it from 0 to 1. Yeah, I'll export that CSS. And we'll just do that. Cool, let's plug that in. Whoa. Plug that in here. And see how that affects our animation. Might have to do some rehacking. Oh, that's quite nice. What do you guys think about that? Kind of flips out, very soft. It's got that jelly feel. All right, so that's Bounce.js. That's how you would use something like Bounce. Just keeping in mind what is your beginning, 0, and what is your ending, 1. And these are a ratio. So 1 is basically 100% height and, or sorry, width, and then height would be 1, 100% there. So that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I think that I'm just going to leave it like this for the time being. I'll put this on GitHub. Now we could make this a little bit more poppy if we go over here to the overflow, turn that off, and then make the hover z index. Well, I want to do it like this, actually. Hover over the parent and make that z index like 2 or 1, I guess. No, 2 is fine. And then this stuff gets over, it's still under the child, so I just have to break that up because I want to insert that declaration right there. Let's see how that works out. See how it pops over everything? It's a little bit more classy, I think. A little bit more exciting. All right, we're just going to leave it there. I think that's good. Okay, that's our video today. I really hope you like it. I hope that you can use something like this in your day-to-day. Now, I want to also kind of just point out that we have, if you may or may not have noticed, we have been experiencing a little bit of a growth spurt in the channel recently, and which is awesome. Welcome to the show. But you guys that are new, you may or may not understand that this channel is a little bit unique in the way that we conduct ourselves. Namely, we're a very highly engaged channel. I got an email or a comment or a notification. One gentleman said that he had watched the show for 2 weeks, and finally, he was leaving a comment, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this guy watched the show for 2 weeks, and here I am not even knowing, like who he is and stuff, and now I feel like I have more of a connection with this gentleman, and I think that these type of connections are why I do this stuff. So if you are new, please introduce yourself down there in the comments below. I want to get to know you. Everybody else who watches the channel regularly, we all just kind of talk and chit-chat, and I answer every comment, and we get to know each other. And even so, some of you guys have been contributing on GitHub and having other ways of interaction as well, and I think that's what makes DevTips great. I teach a little bit and I have make some jokes sometimes, but really what makes this channel great, in my opinion, is the contributions and interactions and engagements that come from you guys. So please introduce yourself down below, and if you haven't yet, you can subscribe. It doesn't matter. All I want is your money. No, I'm just kidding. I don't get any money either. Welcome.